You are listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, and James Jones. And the West Ham United roller coaster takes another loop to loop, another up and downer. And we're coming off the back of one of the fast, exciting bits, as me and James have been saying for the past month or so now. We think that is exactly what's going to happen for the rest of the season. There's going to be some ups, there's going to be some downs, there's going to be some peaks, there's going to be some troughs. And we are coming off the back of a peak, 4-0 thrashing at home against Nottingham Forest. Sorry, a 4-0 thrashing of Nottingham Forest by West Ham United. 2 goals for new January signing Danny Ings, 2 in the space of 3 first half minutes. Mikel Antonio getting himself on the score sheet as well. And Declan Rice with a goal that people will have you believe is the greatest goal ever scored in modern day football, when in fact it was just a nice little curler into the far post. Jonesy, 4-0 against Nottingham Forest. I assume, given your newfound hatred of the tricky trees, I'm not even sure if people call them that. In fact, I think it annoys them. So I'm sure you'll be happy for me to use that phrase a little bit more. 4-0 over Steve Cooper's band of merry men, his 30 new signings. I'm sure you are absolutely delighted.
I am still on cloud 9, mate. I enjoyed every single minute of that. And funny that the comment section on our YouTube channel is very quiet at the moment, as opposed to when we played them last and it was just full of them having a pop at me. So enjoyed every single second of that, and not just because we beat Forest, but because particularly the second half was wonderful. It was great watching us play pretty well and seeing a striker score goals.
It feels like it's a lot because we beat Forest, I'm going to be honest.
What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, you said it's not just because I'm really, really absolutely buzzing, not just because we beat Forest. It feels like it's like 96% because we beat Forest.
I mean, mostly because we beat Forest, yeah.
Yeah.
Put them back in their place a little bit. But generally, though, we needed a win, obviously, but winning like that does no harm, does it? So good for the confidence, good for the morale, good for momentum. And the fact that Danny Ings was able to get off the mark and score those 2 goals, I think is a huge thing for us moving forward for the rest of the season, I think, because we desperately needed someone to just step up and start scoring goals. And that's what he was bought for, wasn't he? So it's good.
Right. I definitely agree, Jonesy. I think that was huge. And you were saying last week, as was I, to be fair, Danny Ings needs to start ahead of Mikel Antonio. And I think, like you say, with those 2 goals, it just, I don't think his performance, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. I don't think his performance was sort of, supersonic beforehand. But to be quite honest, James, he's not really that. He's just a goal scorer, isn't he? He's a poacher, he's a goal scorer, he's a finisher. And what people fail to understand, I find, is that strikers and players like Danny Ings, they're not like easy on the eye for 90 minutes, are they? Their value to a team is that they're clever, they're in the right place, the right time, and they're positioning when it matters in short bursts, in the handful of occasions in a football match that West Ham United will get the ball in the opponent's half, let alone actually get it to the player playing up front for us, who's supposed to be good at putting in the goal. But that is the value of someone like Danny Ings, isn't it? Is that he's in the right places. And I don't think it always looks too glamorous. But when you've scored the numbers of goals that he has, or particularly at Southampton, he got the move to Liverpool, there's a real player in there. In my eyes, he's a goal scorer and a poacher, and I don't know, but I think he may have already matched Mikel Antonio's Premier League goal scoring total for the season, and i.e. the player who's been playing up front for us for the majority of our Premier League games up till February. So I think it's huge that he scored, and I think that we should be persisting with him up front.
You're absolutely bang on. Danny Ings is a striker that couldn't go 70 minutes by barely touching the ball.
Exactly.
But if you put the ball in the box for him, he will finish it, regardless of whether he's been good, bad. He will make the runs that he needs to make.
Yeah.
He will be in the right positions in the box. He's not a player, whereas Antonio is the type of player that, because he's a very different type of front man, where
Yeah.
he can try to hold the ball up at least. He's there to not just be in the box and be a bit of a poacher, but he's there to hold the ball up, bring midfielders into play a little bit. Now, similar to Skamaka as well, in that he has a very different purpose as a striker. Whereas Danny Ings is in that team, is in any team that he's played for, to purely be in the right place at the right time. And that's what we've been craving for so long. I mean, look at Haaland, and by no means am I comparing Danny Ings to Erling Haaland.
Feels like you are.
But Erling Haaland is the epitome of that type of striker. If you watch him for Man City, he will barely touch the ball, and he will barely do anything. But he's scored 27 goals this season, and that's because he's got world-class players giving him the delivery, but he doesn't do anything other than be in the box at the right place at the right time and score goals. Making the correct runs behind the defence.
Hugely impressive, invaluable, and important skill.
And obviously, you've got to be good at finishing as well.
Yeah.
But,
but that's part of it. Sorry, yeah. But again, I just think I spoke to my dad after the game, and I just don't think he was recognising that, as in, he was he was just on the verge of being taken off before he scored, wasn't he? And he was a bit rubbish up till then. And I was like, well, rubbish is probably strong in it a bit, but the fact is, he was on the verge of being taken off until he scored two goals in 3 minutes. Yeah, but he scored 2 goals in 3 minutes.
Exactly.
So those 3 minutes, and
he's not on the pitch to be a flair player, is he?
No, but those parts, those minutes of the game are the different. He is a difference maker, isn't he? When Southampton were having that decent run, it was all because of him, weren't they? Weren't particularly flashy, or you didn't think they were absolutely astonishingly good football team. But the fact of the matter was, when they did get the ball in the opposition box and it fell to the feet of their centre forward, he was making sure it fell to his feet more because of his clever positioning and clever running. And B, when that happened, his conversion rate was absolutely superb. So I've wanted him for a long time. Before he went to Villa, I was a bit gutted when he went there, and I'm pretty surprised it didn't work for him there. And no, I think it's brilliant. And I'm not, I'd like to see how it might work with Skamaka or whatever, but it's certainly an upgrade on Michail Antonio. And I think these days, goal scoring wise, I think opposition players, looking at West Ham team they've got coming up, they will be more fearful of Danny Ings being on the starting lineup than Michail Antonio. For centre-backs, they might not have an easier ride in far as they probably come off feeling like they've had a physical battle with Antonio every week, and that wouldn't be the case with Danny Ings. But the difference is Danny Ings, with a little drop of his shoulder, a little shimmy and a little flash of movement, can make the defender look silly in a heartbeat and have the ball in the back of the net twice. And all of a sudden, your team's lost 2 or 3-0. It's not going to happen with Antonio, is it? If you match him for pace and power, he's not going to do you with intelligence or a cheeky little sneaky run or superb positioning or absolute razor sharp finishing, is he? He's not going to do those things. So no, absolutely delighted to see Michail Antonio up front, and I must apologise as well, Jonesy, to Michail. That tongue-in-cheek comment I made about Danny Ings matching his Premier League total of goals for this season. He's actually got 3, not 2. 3 in the.
He almost did until he came off the bench and scored.
Yeah, exactly. Precisely. So at one point in that game, until Antonio had scored, Danny Ings had matched Antonio's Premier League goal scorer record for this season. 3 goals in 23. Look, I know recently it sort of comes across that being disrespectful towards Antonio. It's not that. I genuinely have loads of respect for his time at West Ham and what an integral part he's been in some really successful teams. And of course, we all remember him fondly. I don't think it's disrespectful to be of the opinion that his best days are behind him now, and that if West Ham want to be where we all want to be, that Michail Antonio, unfortunately, anymore doesn't feature a part of that. Just like it would be weird to play Trevor Brooking on the left wing now. Doesn't mean you don't love him or appreciate what he's done for the club. Just players do get older and become less effective. That's what's happening to Michail. James, we don't normally go straight into football, so I feel a little bit uncomfortable having done that. Jonesy, it's been a very long time since West Ham won a game 4-0, especially in the Premier League. I don't actually know when that is. I feel like conscientious podcasters who were introing a section about their team winning 4-0 would have quickly taken a moment to check the last time West Ham either scored 4 goals at London Stadium, if that's ever happened, or won a game 4-0. But your face tells me you know the answer.
I'm pretty sure I do. It had massive vibes of Moyes' first game back when we beat Bournemouth 4-0 at home.
Right. I thought it was Bournemouth. I said that to my dad. Yes.
But we've won 4-0 at least once since then in the Premier League. It was during lockdown. We beat Wolves 4-0 during lockdown. Bowen scored a couple of goals. It was. I think it was one of the first fixtures after the restart, behind closed doors. And it was. We went into that game. We're worried about potentially going down, and we still hadn't scored a Premier League goal against Wolves since Wolves had come back up, and it was like, here we go, and beaten 4-0. Sebastian Haller scored that day as well. So, but I'm pretty sure we haven't won 4-0 in the Premier League since then. Oh no, away from home we did. We beat Norwich, didn't we? 4-0.
Of course, Mikel Antonio with all 4.
But other than that, I think it's been
the last time he scored. I think.
Yeah, might have been. So we have done it quite a few times, but it had vibes of David Moyes' first game back, beating Bournemouth 4-0 at London Stadium, and yeah, so you don't write us off too much, mate. We do win 4-0 every now and then.
Yeah, true. I could not remember the last time. I did say Bournemouth. I thought we'd done Bournemouth at some stage. Yeah. So where do you want to start then, mate? 4 goals to choose from, a penalty appeal that wasn't, again, after the decisions that went for Forest at the City Ground.
Yeah.
The fact they could even complain about any of them was quite baffling, to be quite honest. Do you want to start there and get out of the way and then finish on the good stuff? Ben Johnson tackle on Brennan Johnson. B Johnson on B Johnson. I only noticed that now. I wonder if they do, what's it called? The baby oil, isn't it? Johnson and Johnson. I think they do. I think they did all the vaccines in America as well, to be fair. So quite diverse. I don't think it is them, is it? Brendan and Ben just do a sideline in global pharmaceuticals, or
no, maybe, I don't know. I mean, I'd be very surprised, but
yeah, I would be pretty shocked. Yeah. So Johnson on Johnson, my opinion, just briefly, clear contact, ridiculous dive, far too late to try and make it obvious. I don't really begrudge him going down. He feels contact in the box. You'd want your players to go down as well. Wouldn't have been at all surprised really if it was given. Fact it wasn't is hardly a travesty against football either. And given what happened and all the luck they had and decisions at the City Ground earlier in the season, I think that's just God, if there is one, deciding that actually I should probably level the playing field here a bit.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a non-starter. I think I'll make you right. I don't think it was a penalty. The fact that it's not even in half of the highlights packages released since.
Well, true, yeah.
I haven't. I mean, I've watched about 3 or 4 different highlights packages since, and I don't recall them ever showing that as a key moment in the game. So yeah, I mean, they can bemoan VAR or bemoan the decision all they want, but you're right. The fact is that they had enough of that at the City Ground. Don't feel sorry for them at all. And it would have been quite. I think it would have been fortunate had they got the penalty out of that, because I don't think it was a penalty at all.
No, I don't know. I think if that was a West Ham fan, the conversation we'd be having on here and your opinion would be different.
Maybe, I don't know.
Well, no, I'm telling you.
All right.
Okay. I know you extremely well now, mate. Yeah, I'm just telling you that's exactly what you'd be saying. It was what it was, and obviously we put 4 goals beyond them. Like I said, we'll finish on a positive with chatting about the goals in a minute. A particularly miserable colleague of mine, curmudgeonly, I would say, not miserable, but curmudgeonly, journalist and West Ham fan, who I think he tweeted something about Moyes last week, and I just replied and was just like, look, lost one. I think it was before the Spurs game. Oh yeah, no, it was after the Spurs game. He was moaning, saying he's got to go. And I just said, that's only a second defeat of the calendar year. The performances have clearly improved. We've got a couple of draws, but they were against Newcastle and Chelsea, which are obviously good results because they're good teams with good players. But the performances have been better. We've had one bad half out of 6 across those games against Spurs, Newcastle and Chelsea. It's like just because you haven't won, that doesn't mean there hasn't been improvement. Anyway, I bumped into him in the toilet in the office yesterday, just all innocent. Like we were just, as you do normally, not in the cubicles or anything like that. Nothing untoward. and just sort of having a chat. And he was still, I said, that's good, wasn't it? Saturday 4-0 at home. I'm just like one of those people who just, it's like, how do you, if you're still grumbling after a 4-0 home victory, he's, but, we were rubbish up until we, and anyone, it's the same, my dad with Danny Ings, he was rubbish up until he scored those 2 goals. Those 2 match-winning goals he scored, yeah. And it's like, West Ham were rubbish up until they scored those 4 goals. It's like, so what, you'd only be happy if we scored the 4 goals inside the first 5 minutes, would you? Like how long are we allowed to still be in the game with a chance of winning it before it's a complete disaster? It's like matches of football are 90 minutes plus stoppage time, and providing you score more goals than the opposition within that time frame, you win the football match. Like that's how it works. Like, and he's like, we were rubbish up until we scored. I was like, well, first of all, we weren't rubbish. And then we did score 4 times. And the opponents didn't score any times. And it's it's not going to change though, is it? We'll lose at Man United on Wednesday. And so, well, potentially, yes. But we're going to Old Trafford against Manchester United. So, we might lose that game.
Moyes in Forest at home isn't going to determine whether you beat Man United away, is it?
What do you mean?
Well, it's like, we might. Like, I understand why that's something that you would bring up while you're moaning. Oh, yeah, we're going to lose to Man United, so the win against Forest is irrelevant.
Yeah,
it's like,
but it's just when those people, like I think we are really good, genuinely, at being flexible and pragmatic and open-minded. I think we're both pretty willing to hear another point of view and change our perspective on it. But some people are just so dug into what they believe, aren't they? And particularly when it comes to the Moyes out stuff, it's like, we said a few weeks ago, didn't we, quite openly after the Wolves defeat, perhaps it is time for a change. Like we were Moyes in for a lot of time, but you slowly, you change and you see the evidence, you hear what other people say, whatever, and you go, yeah, okay, fair enough. And then, but you don't have to just believe that forever.
Mm.
And I feel like that's what's been going on. Like there's been clear improvement. It's not great yet, but just because it's not this perfect utopia where we're smashing everyone in sight, we're trending in the right direction again. And I just think, but it's just so easy for people with that agenda to look at the cup games and go, they're only cup games. It's like, well, yeah, they are. But if they wouldn't only be cup games if we'd lost them, you'd be using them as ammunition for your argument to get rid of Moyes. So look, we crashed out. We couldn't even beat Derby in the FA Cup. Actually, we got a win away at a fellow Premier League team who were playing better than us at the time in Brentford. And then we went up against one of the biggest teams in League One who should really be in the Championship. The game we would have lost in the past, won that as well. And I don't know. I just find it really, really confusing. I think there's still a large element of that, in our fan base. And it's just a bit confusing. We've just won 4-0. What more can you do?
The reality is that on Saturday, I mean, at half time, we were saying, my mates were saying, probably should have been a little bit better in the first half, but, get a goal and we win the game. Forest away form was terrible anyway. So it's like, all we need to do is score 1 goal and we'll win this game. Doesn't matter if it's 1-0 and it's just a bit of a scrappy 1-0 in the end, whatever. But it did feel like we were still in danger of, Forest could probably nick a goal and then it's a little bit panic stations. The fact is, we were all expecting Forest to turn up and make it very, very difficult for us very, very early in order to get the crowd a little bit tense and get the pressure on the team. And that's what I would have done if I'm Steve Cooper in Nottingham Forest, and they didn't. So for me, that was a positive going in at half time. Going, okay, it hasn't been convincing, but we're still in it. They haven't really frustrated us that much. And all we got to do is score one goal and we'll win the game, because very unlikely they'll score. And if they do score first, we should be good enough to get back into it. So then you go and win 4-0, far more than we were expecting at half time, or even on the hour mark. I mean, the first goal came in the 70th minute. So with half hour left, you go, cool, time's running out a little bit, and then you go and win 4-0. So nothing to moan about. No. Anything. It's the perfect result. It's like great. It improves our goal difference in a season where goal difference is going to be very important down there, I think. So, I mean, anyone that complains just clearly will never be happy ever again. So you just got okay, it wasn't perfect up until the 70th minute, but after the 70th minute, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
And we completely blew them away. And the striker that we signed in January scored 2 of the goals.
Yeah.
And, a striker that we brought off the bench, who isn't really a striker, but has been playing as a striker recently, also scored.
Yeah.
And our £50 million record signing played pretty well before he got subbed off. And it's like, all these things, you've got to take the positives and go, okay, there's a lot of good positive signs there to suggest that we're going to be all right in a couple of months' time when the season's over. And are we in the Premier League still, or are we not in the Premier League? Like, the signs are good.
Yeah.
So let's be positive.
Yeah. No, I agree. Honestly, I just think it's an odd situation. I understand it hasn't been great this year, but we will be okay. And I honestly think, it's sort of one of those. I was nervous about Saturday more because I had a real inherent belief we would win the game, just as we did at Everton, right? And all right, David Moyes against the bigger teams isn't so good. And I am sort of thinking, why the hell am I going up to Old Trafford on Wednesday when we are 100% going to win 2-0 without ever really attacking their box? But hey, it is what it is. But against the teams around us, that's why we've been so successful the past couple of seasons. We beat the teams that historically fans will always go, we should beat them. Well, we have been beating teams like that. The Everton game a few weeks ago was a massive pressure game. 2-0, no problem. Well played, lads. Well played, Moyes. Nottingham Forest, given what had gone before, it's turned into another big pressure game and I think we try and avoid building up the hype too much, but it was inevitable, right? Just because of the nature of the season so far, when you have a dodgy start, more pressure comes onto the games at the end. So it was a pressure game on Saturday, and I genuinely I'm still barking about to anyone who listens saying we're too good to go down, and I had an inherent belief that that we would be okay on Saturday. But because I've been so vocal about, come on, everyone, it's not as bad as you think it is. Especially after the Wolves defeat, there's been a significant recovery. Because of that, I was just scared. I was like, even though I don't think we'll lose this game against Forest, if we do, it's proper eat your words time and go okay, yeah, no, all of you people I've been sort of turning my nose up at, going, why are you just banging on being so negative all the time? It would have been like, oh yeah, right, fair enough, lads. Yeah, you were right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you just got to. I know what you mean, but you just got to. I don't know how you can even begin to be upset or look down about a 4-0 win.
Yeah.
I'm really struggling to start. We won 4-0, great. I remember moaning on last week's pod, going, final third play's been terrible. We're not scoring enough goals. This is not good enough. We need to be better at getting in the final third and putting crosses in the box for whoever's in. We need to be better at that. We did that on Saturday. I'm not going to moan about it. I'm happy. You've done something that I was moaning about a week ago. So I'm going to stop moaning and be happy about the fact they changed it.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant. I was moaning about it. Clearly they listened.
Yeah, again.
And they fixed it. We scored 4 goals. 2 of them came from a striker. Our strikers never score goals. So brilliant. Let's be happy.
Exactly, mate. Yeah, I'm totally with you. Right, which of the 4 goals, was your favourite then? Obviously, it's easy to say Declan Rice, but we'll finish on a flourish of this section. Which was your favourite of the 4?
I'm going to say Danny Ings is second because the build-up play to it was really good, and it's exactly what we've been missing. Like his first one, Bowen, I think he's had a shot, but he sweeped it and he's kind of scooped it, and it's ended up being a cross. But the second one in particular, the build-up with Paqueta and Benrahma, Paqueta did really well to win the ball back, and then played in Benrahma. Benrahma showed a lot of intent in getting into the box and getting to the byline and putting a cross in. We don't see enough of that from him, to be fair, in those positions. And then, all Ings has got to do is just get a knee or a toe or a hip or whatever he ended up getting to it, and it goes in. Natural striker's instincts on display. So it was the second one purely because it was the byproduct of something that we haven't been doing enough as a team all season, and that is like driving into the final third and playing balls in behind defences and putting crosses into the box for strikers to get on the end of. Declan Rice was a good finish, not worldy material, I don't think, but it was a good curling at the top bins. I do, although I've watched it back a few times because I love it how it hits the back of the net just as the Forest players walk in behind.
Yeah, Renan Loddy, wasn't it?
Yeah, and he's kind of, if you look closely, he kind of looks up, it's the back of the net, and he just looks down again really quickly. He doesn't react at all. He's probably thinking, oh my God.
Yeah.
And then Antonio's goal was very similar in terms of build-up play. 4 nows this time, getting in the box and putting a deep cross in. So they all had their, they all had attractive qualities about them. But for me, it's the second one, just because it just showed that, it just proved that if you get in the box and put balls in the box and you attack defences, you've got half a chance of scoring goals. And we showed that. We did it 4 times, and it's why we've been doing it all season. But I'm not going to moan because we're going to be positive about it. But yeah, that was my favourite.
Yeah, fair enough. I would go for Ingsy's first, and that was sort of a bit of an awkward one with the offside, the VAR, and I just think him getting off the mark, I think, is good. He's brilliant.
So important, yeah.
Broke the deadlock in the game as well, obviously, and like you said, you didn't feel like you're gonna nose it up from there. It obviously was the catalyst for the flurry of goals that came in quick succession afterwards. So I just really want him, as I do with every West Ham player, of course, but just really keen for Ingsy to be a success. And I honestly think he will be. I just think it's a good fit at the moment. We've needed someone who just knows where the back of the net is for a while. It hasn't really got off the ground with Scamacca so far for various different reasons, obviously, namely his injuries. But he looks good when he's about, and it's just nice to have 2 players now who look like who are going to play centre forward and look like they've trained to be a centre forward their whole lives, as opposed to a really good sort of a bit more of an all-round footballer and athlete in Mikel Antonio, who's made the position work for himself and been a reasonable success there over the past few seasons. But it's just nice to have a couple of centre forwards playing in those positions. But anyway, Jonesy, absolutely brilliant to get that win over Forest at the weekend. Again, there isn't really a conversation to be had about Moyes in or out now, but obviously got a big game against Manchester United in the Cup on Wednesday. We've moved up to 16th, Jonesy. Another win. I mean, I know obviously we're not going to beat Brighton because we never do. They're looking pretty good under De Zerbi. We'll speak to Moss shortly to hear his thoughts on that game. But another win would get us 27 points. Still looking like 12th or 13th. So it's still not really in the glamour positions. But 4-0 win is brilliant, trending in the right direction. Happy days. Stay